we've been through ups and downs most of our life, and we're not gonna take it. We're gonna go out this world fighting. Yeah, we don't give up here.
Since they were very little, they were always together and helping each other.
Yeah.
JT was always with Michael. Michael was always with JT. JT would stand up for Michael. JT would help Michael. Even when Michael didn't ask for help, JT could see if he needed help and he'd be there. They always looked out for each other.
It's Michael, JT. Here comes Michael. Hi, Michael. Hey, JT. Are you happy?
I was raising children that are around the same age as JT and Michael, so you can really understand what goes into being brothers. And brothers don't always get along, they don't always like each other. Those two were just inseparable.
They were both very active little boys, really mischievous children, very mischievous.
Yes, very.
They were really just best pals when they were really little.
They were always together.
JT was always a little firecracker, funny, and he was a favorite cousin of all the cousins. He was always a good kid.
He would go for full throttle with everything always. He had this zest about him, you know, just to go after it, everything. When he was determined to do something, he'd get it done.
First thing that I remember where I could tell that Mike was a little bit different was the way that he used to walk. He kind of walked on his tippy toes, and he wobbled a little bit. His balance wasn't all that good.
The doctor said something's going on with his enzymes. I'm not sure what's going on. They might want to get his liver checked or something. Something's not right. And come to find out, it was not the liver, it was muscle. They ended up doing muscle biopsy. And they found out that it was just one of those things that happens, a spontaneous mutation. And he was diagnosed with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. I had to call my husband and tell him what was going on, and I was hysterical because they gave us a life expectancy of like teen years. It was terrifying.
When we first learned about Michael's diagnosis, Susan and I made a conscious decision not to tell him. We wanted him just to be a normal kid and to just find his way like any other kid. Just live like the rest of us, you know, one day at a time, and have hopes and dreams and try to fulfill those things.
When Michael was walking till the time he went to a wheelchair, when he was having a hard time, he'd fall down when the wind blew. It caused a lot of anxiety for JT. And JT was a younger brother, but he felt like he was responsible for looking out for Michael. He felt like he needed to be Michael's guardian. You know, his brother was losing all of his abilities, but JT could still run and do everything else every other kid did. So that was very hard for him.
JT grew into more of an advocate for his brother, you know, so that love, that strong bond of love remained, but it changed. It evolved over the years until JT was his primary caretaker.
So this is one of the letters that JT sent me. Dear Mom, I know how you hate it, so I ran away. Your lost son, John. He wrote these when he was probably 6, 7 years old. Nobody loves me, is what it's supposed to say. And inside is a broken heart, and that's him and me. He felt really neglected for a while. This was a common theme with him. He was probably only in 2nd grade, maybe, I'm not really sure. Showing him helping Michael get up when Michael fell. JT was smaller than Mike, but he would always make sure he was there in case something happened to Michael.
My brother has saved me quite a number of times. Like one time, after a while of being at the skate park, I couldn't breathe anymore and I passed out right in the parking lot when the ambulance came to get me. He was really afraid and scared, and he really helped me out a lot.
And while they were in the ambulance, they were going to do some work on Mike. And he had to fight with those people not to do what they would do to a normal person. He says, you can't do that with Mike. You'll kill him.
JT knew what was best for Mike, and Mike knew what was best for JT. They took care of each other.
He was like Michael's guardian angel. He just looked out for Michael. My brother with getting up. I helped my brother with getting up.
We were like, I would say the total opposite, but we still stuck together. Like, he was into skateboarding, outdoors, and hockey, and I was into art and heavy metal music.
Michael and JT were two peas in a pod. When you found one, the other one was right there. JT was always right by Mike's side. They were more than brothers. It was, you can't even put that bond into words.
Here's a kid in a motorized wheelchair and a kid riding a skateboard behind him. It was evident the close relationship between the two.
Michael was so impressed with JT's abilities, so it was fine with him. For somebody who was in a wheelchair, he was still okay, just kind of following along, watching his brother's abilities. We were hockey enthusiasts when they were in high school. We would go to the Bonnie Eagle games, and he was just a spitfire. He just put his all into it.
JT, I think I'd have to classify as one of my favorite players that I've ever had worked with. There was so many dynamics to him, on and off the ice as well.
Yeah, playing hockey with him, I mean, he worked hard. And with his size, he had to work hard, and he would just surprise people twice his size, kids twice his size.
He was a very good hockey player. Ended up being the first two kids from his high school to make the Maine All-Star team. What made GT so good to watch on the ice was that he was relentless. He would just, he would get knocked down and he would come back even harder. He didn't quite put as much enthusiasm into hockey as he did skateboarding. That was his first real love.
I started to get really into making movies with making our own skate videos with my brother skateboarding and just funny skits and stuff.
Hi, my name is JT, and this is Scared Skating. Now, me and Michael just probably got grounded by our parents. Bye.
Michael was always the thinker. JT was always the doer. They did a video of JT acting as Michael on a skateboard. The video starts out with him kind of in his wheelchair, and then they switch and JT jumps out of the wheelchair, but you can't really see JT's face, but he's wearing clothes that Michael was wearing.
And when JT got in the skateboard and Michael was there with a camera, JT would do all the dangerous stuff, and Michael would stay on the sidelines filming it all.
Yeah, that duo of Michael and JT is just something you don't see with brothers. Really, it's just unbelievable. Mike filming and JT would come over. Hey, Mike, is this the right way I should be pulling this? Yeah. Go try it again. It's just amazing to see.
Later on during high school, we met up with some other like-minded people that were also making skate videos, and I got really interested after that.
The first time that I had seen John skate, it was mesmerizing, really, just to see somebody in person with the same kind of passion that you have nail all these ridiculously gnarly tricks.
First time you saw John skate, what was your first impression?
How the hell does this little guy with these short legs make his body look so big when he flips his board? Not trying to impress anyone, he just wanted to feel like he was flying.
You know, it's 3:30 in the morning, he wakes me up out of a dead sleep and says he wants to do the Edna Libby roof gap. Probably the craziest thing I've ever seen. It sounded like a bag of rocks hitting the ground from 15 feet up.
You okay?
I don't even like climbing to the roof, let alone jump off it with a skateboard.
It was almost like the skateboard was an extension of himself. He just knew it so well, and he was so comfortable with it. With him, it wasn't just a hobby. It was more than that for him.
JT could have easily became a professional skater. Easily. No doubt about it.
We ended up getting into his car and driving out to USM and checking out the 16 stair. And he comes up to me and his famous, first try commit right here.
Signature move, first try commit.
I think his commitment was the thing that really was like the crazy thing to me. It wasn't even like a thought in his head that he wasn't gonna do what he was doing. It was just like, it's gonna happen.
Oh my God, dude. Dude, don't push it.
Craziest trick I've ever seen him land was probably a 360 flip down the 9 stair in Portland, which was just unbelievable because the stair set was all cement, just gnarly. You did not want to fall, you did not want to mess up on the stair set. And just to pull something that big down that stair was just unheard of in that time.
The craziest trick I think I ever saw him try was El Toro, the 21 set out in California.
Here it is. The illustrious El Toro. All right, here goes my first try. Obviously, it's gonna have to be a commit, so.
There's videos of professional guys that go up to it and won't even send it their first try. And John just looked at the stair set, got a running start and send it. Broke his board on the first try. I swear if it didn't break, he would have rolled away. It's insane.
Pretty smooth. Voluptuous.
That right there.
Soft.
That right there was my boy John Norton. He's coming up in the world.
He could have been pro easily. I always asked him, like, why don't you get sponsored? Why don't you send some videos? He had all this footage. He could, other people have seen it, and it just blew my mind that he never did anything with it. That just shows how humble he was, He was in it for the fun and the people. He was definitely a people person, Everyone knew of him or knew about him.
He was like the ringleader almost. Like if John was around, everybody wanted to be around. And we'd all just like maybe be in the blue van and just roll together. And that's the stuff that like I always remember, not even just tricks, just like the way that he brought people into a group and just kind of kept them tight.
He was leader of our crew. We all looked up to him. That was all we needed was our friends. We didn't care about any of that. We didn't care about having girlfriends. We were about all our friends.
A bunch of us got together one night. JT calls me up and he's like, hey man, he's like, I got this spot we gotta go to. He's like, it's awesome, I promise you. I think it was like 11:30 at night. It was ridiculous. He drove us out to Scarborough, Walmart. I'm like, what are we doing out here? And he's like, what do you think? And I was like, this is insane, dude. He hops on the forklift and he's driving the forklift around, cutting stuff up, and we're building ramps and stuff inside of Walmart. And I was just like, dude, like, this is probably the coolest thing I've ever done in my life, but I'm like having an anxiety attack at the same time because I'm like wondering if the cops are gonna show up or whatever. And I think we skated for about 4 or 5 hours in that place. We got a bunch of footage and filmed a bunch of stuff. And it was probably one of the funnest nights of my life. He didn't care, JT, he'd do whatever. If he could skate something, he'd skate it. And if somebody said otherwise, he'd figure out a way to do it. He was just one of those types of people where if we were all skating, he would hype everybody up. And if you got discouraged to try to do a trick or something, he would just push you, and he'd make sure you landed that trick, you know. And he was just so welcoming to the whole skateboarding community.
JT just was like blazing a trail and people followed. And he was one of those kids who was a natural leader. And guys wanted to be around him. Guys wanted to be able to function on his same level.
The effort that he put into that sport is what inspired me, and it made me want to be the person that put effort into it to be good at skating, and that ended up following me in life.
He was always a teacher to me, everywhere I went. It's like in skateboarding, in hockey, in life in general, just being a good person. That was a big thing to John, was just living life to the fullest, going big, teaching, and just love and respect.
There wasn't anybody he didn't get along with. He was just incredible, and he influenced everybody around him in a positive way.
He was so inclusive, which I think is why he had so many friends and why everybody got along with him so well, because it didn't matter what your background was or who you were friends with or what your family life was like, or none of that mattered to JT. He just saw you as a person.
John learned a lot from me as to just being accepting of every person and just treating everyone equally. When he never said anything bad about anybody. I believe since being around me and other people that have my illness, I think it's made him a good person.
It'd be funny to like see these kids, you know, and I don't want to say they were like derelicts, but they were just rough kids, you know, had rough upbringings and just kind of the wild boys, and they would take Michael wherever they went, you know, and do stuff with him, and like Michael would need to put on his sweatshirt or something because it'd be cold out or it'd be hot out. You know, these kids had no problem taking his sweatshirt off or getting him comfortable, moving him around, you know. It was just kind of funny seeing one side of these kids, you know, that were always kind of in trouble in school, you know, but yet they would do anything for Michael. And they all interacted together and, you know, looked out for each other. They were a close group of kids, and sometimes they would need a place to stay for a couple of weeks, you know, until they sorted things out with their parents, and, you know, so they could sleep on our couch or hang out at our house till things get better.
And your family, like, took us in. Our family, we don't have safety nets. We don't have families that support us like that. We do everything on our own, and to have people let us in their home the way your family did in general, not just John, but your entire family, you know what I mean? Accepting of our issues and our lives and stuff, you know what I mean? That alone inspired me to be willing to put my hand out and help someone else.
John and I were together during one of the most difficult times in my own personal life, and I'd say he was my rock because he literally was. I had a lot going on at home where my situation wasn't ideal, and I was living on my own, paying my own bills at like 16, and despite what I went through, JT never made me feel like I should be ashamed of it.
John Norton in the spotlight.
What did you say?
There's Jess, the good luck charm, perhaps. But John didn't die today.
I didn't get hurt.
Luckily.
What if I drove down? I'm not gonna die. I have confidence.
I think is a little ironic that it came full circle. And meanwhile, as open and loving as JT was for everyone else, he had his own turmoil inside.
When did you realize things were off with John?
I remember one specific occasion. I was driving by your guys' house in Standish, and it was really late at night. It was like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and John was walking down the side of the road. I pulled over to see what he was doing, and he told me that he was memorizing scripture.
You know, I'd party a lot and out and back of my house, and we have fires and shit. And I remember this one time JT came dressed in a suit, and he just like brings out the Bible and starts singing these songs out of the Bible. Like, not that I had anything against that, but it was just like, where did this come from? Is this JT?
He just was so zealot about some of this religious stuff that it kind of drove a wedge between everybody in the family. We didn't know how to talk to him, we didn't know how to approach him. But I guess this is one of the symptoms of, you know, schizophrenia.
Schizophrenia is one of the most serious mental illnesses that we face in behavioral health. It's a particularly difficult disease because it strikes people at the beginning of their productive lives, usually around 18 to 22 years of age. And they are seemingly completely normal up until that time, and then suddenly things get very abnormal. One of the symptoms we see very often is hyper-religiosity. That is, people who had no particular interest in religion before suddenly go way off the deep end. They'll develop some delusions that, you know, they actually have special messages from God, and sometimes act on those. And it's a very common symptom that we see in psychosis.
He knew that I was involved throughout high school, and I was a youth group leader and all that, and so he came to talk to me about God and what he believed, and wasn't quite sure what he believed, but he felt very lost. He felt like he didn't really know where he was going in life. He didn't really know what options he had. He just kind of seemed, I don't know, he seemed lost in his own mind.
His eyes changed. The brightness in his eyes went away. He was just, you could tell that he was confused. Sometimes he'd sit there for hours at the table with us. Even when he was playing poker with us, he could go the whole night without speaking.
He would show up at Standish sometimes, and he kind of seemed antisocial. I would come up and talk to him, and he kind of seemed shy. It's like his energy and his fire was just kind of like not there anymore.
He didn't have that light in his eyes. He didn't have that confidence. He almost seemed like there was a worry. There was something that was always there, you know, in the back of his head.
It seemed like John was isolating himself. You could like see in his eyes that things were changing too.
You know, his thinking just didn't make any sense.
The last text message that I got was this really scattered text that was just all over the place. And I said, unfortunately, I think that's delusional. Who are you listening to? What can I do to help? And he said, honestly, there's nothing you can do because you're on the wrong side. He just wanted, I think, a very simple life, and he couldn't even grasp that. He couldn't even attain that, and that's what frustrated him so much.
People have disorganized thinking. Their thoughts are no longer linear. It's hard to follow a train of conversation with them. They also can be very paranoid, believe that people are out to harm them. They're very hypervigilant about their environment.
Brett called him to see if he could, see what he was doing, see if he wanted to come down. And all John said was, I can't, it's dangerous outside. And he hung up on him. And that was kind of the first time where I was like, something's off, something's changing, something's different.
I happened to walk by his car, and I glanced in the passenger side, and I saw a gun. It was kind of a breaking point in our relationship because he was just doing so much crazy and wild things, and I ended up taking the gun, and he didn't like that.
They can also have internal stimulation, like hallucinations, particularly auditory hallucinations. They can hear voices, sometimes multiple voices, which they usually can't control very well. And these can be very distressing because the voices can have content that tells the patient to do something to themselves or do something to somebody else.
He wrote something one time about the figment of his imagination versus reality. He didn't know where the line was sometimes. And that illness of schizophrenia even invaded his dreams. I mean, he wrote about some of his dreams sometimes of being trapped under ice and not being able to get out. And he was always afraid of being trapped in hell. He said, "Mom, what if I get trapped in hell and the doors close forever and I can never get out?" I don't know how to answer that.
You'd talk to him and he just wouldn't be himself. He would be really, like, far away almost. I mean, I knew he was in some type of pain, but I didn't think it was so bad. It just rapidly got worse. And he didn't really talk about it either, you know? He didn't really ask for help. It wasn't in his nature.
No 18-year-old wants to be labeled as being schizophrenic. No family wants to hear that their 18-year-old has developed schizophrenia. There isn't a lot known in the public about schizophrenia, and what is known about it is usually very negative, and so there's clearly a stigma about the diagnosis.
Probably took a good year before we really did something about it, and what happened was that was his first attempt to take his life. I was on my way to work that night, and Susan called me, and she's like hysterical, and so I'm like, you know, you need to get him in the car and bring him to the hospital, and we've got to get him evaluated.
After his diagnosis, he kind of stayed really close to home and didn't really leave the house. And he was paid to take care of me and get me up every day and in my wheelchair. Seemed like his illness was a lot worse than mine. Mine is manageable, but it's hard on everybody.
It's easy to take care of Michael, but we couldn't take care of JT. Except to love him, you know. He knew we loved him, I know that, but we couldn't fix him.
Michael's expectations of his brother completely changed. And so he had to accommodate, you know, his needs had to take a back seat to JT's needs.
It took me a while to figure out that I couldn't give him advice because that's the worst thing you can do to somebody that's having issues with mental illness. You have to earn their trust again because with the nature of his illness, he didn't just trust people. He was very skeptical. He really pretty much taught me how to live in the moment and how to not worry about what he did before in his life as far as try to hurt himself, not to fear the things he did before, not to worry about what he might do in the future. I had to really focus on today.
Family support is absolutely crucial. And this is an illness that really tears families apart. Family members feel so powerless to help the person with the illness. You can't force them to take their medications. You can't give them your insight into their behaviors and symptoms.
I brought him to the hospital a few times, and it was hair-raising. I thought he was going to jump out of the car. You know, just very, very scary.
When he left for 2 months and we didn't know where he was, I just felt like we were gonna find out that he was dead or something. He just wanted to get out of here, and if he had to sleep outside, he would. It wouldn't matter.
He called it his experience. He didn't make it sound like he was out of his mind, you know. It was his experience. That's what he called it. He said that people, when he came back, he told me, he said, you know, that's a hard life living on the road like that. He says, because people ignore you. When you look like you're pretty messy and you're sleeping in dumpsters and stuff, he goes, people don't look at you.
I knew that something just wasn't right. I just knew that one of these days something bad could happen.
He had an appointment with a doctor. He told her he wasn't taking his medication for about a week. And I knew something was going on because his behaviors were very alarming that week. He said, that medicine is not good for me anymore. I sleep too long, I don't feel good, I don't feel like it's helping me. And she said to him, what about your brother Mike? Is he on medication? And he said, yes. And she said, what would happen if he stopped taking it? And he looked at her and he said, that would be my brother's choice. It was JT's choice to stop his medication. And unfortunately, the consequences were not good. But it was still his choice.
I had come home from work, and it was like one of the coldest days of the winter so far. I mean, it's like really super cold. And he was going outside. He kind of looked at me like, you know, I could just tell something was up, but I didn't quite know what was going on. You know, I could tell something was on his mind.
I had gotten out of work at 6. My husband called me on the way home from work. He was frantic. He said, Susan, it's freezing cold weather out. It was like below 0 wind chill. And he said, I do not know where JT is. He goes, last time I saw him, he's going out the door. And he said, do you have any idea where he might be? I said, no, I don't. But I said, I think you might want to check the sand pit. That's the only thing I could think of because he loved to go to the sand pit down at Otter Pond.
So I got a flashlight, some boots on, and, you know, and went over there for about 45 minutes screaming in the dark, looking for him, and, you know, I couldn't find him.
Well, I get a text from somebody that said, did you know John Norton? And I said, what do you mean, did know? And like, right then and there, like, my heart drops.
I ran upstairs and I opened his bedroom door and I saw a big pool of blood and I found my son. I don't remember a lot after that. I don't remember if I even could form a sentence. I really don't. I remember my husband taking his pulse and calling 911. He had the sense to do that. I didn't. I was just up there, just looking at my son, and that image in my head is always going to be there. And what makes me kind of sad about it is Michael was down at the bottom of the stairs at the time. So he heard me upstairs, so he knew something bad happened.
I still feel like I should have tried to do something else or talk to him longer. But I forgive him for what he did because he doesn't have to hear those voices anymore. I don't think he wanted to make that choice, but his illness just caught up with him. I'm not mad at him, I'm mad at the illness, schizophrenia. It like took my best friend away.
I couldn't talk for an hour. I couldn't say anything. I was just choked up, I couldn't talk.
I don't think I stopped crying for hours. You just always wish that there was something you could have done to help, you know?
I really wish I had reached out more and just, you know, kind of put myself out there like he always did with everybody. It's kind of hard. Looking back, knowing you can't.
Suicide is a leading cause of death. In Maine, a person is 9 times more likely to die by suicide than by homicide. And we have a suicide about every day and a half. What I know of people who have been severely and deeply suicidal is they're seeking to end their pain, much more than they're seeking to end their life. And if they can find a way to deal with the pain, to live with it, to work with it, to reduce it, other than dying, they will. Many of the most dedicated suicide prevention people I know do it from a place of loss, having lost a family member, having lost a child, and they push forward with the absolute determination that it won't happen to other families.
I will never really, you know, be able to get over anything like that, but I've been able to move forward because I know that his story is one that needs to be told to help other people.
I knew he would want me to keep going with whatever I have to do, and I feel like that's the best way to honor him. And making this movie is, I think it's therapeutic.
You know, one of the things that's really tough about working with these families over time is that, you know, you have to help prepare them for the idea that their son is, you know, may die at a very early age in their teenage years or their 20s. But to have that happen for an entirely different reason in the same family, to have, you know, a terrible mental illness like schizophrenia affect the other son in a family, I mean, it's just devastating. I can't imagine how hard it would be to watch your two boys experience these two incredibly different disease processes affecting their bodies and their brains.
If I didn't have Michael's illness to deal with and everything that happened along the way with Michael, I didn't realize how strong I was, but I wouldn't have been able to help JT as I had to become very educated what was going on with him too.
It's just a regular day in the Norton household, you know. Things just don't stop because of something bad happening, you know. We got to take care of this. We got to, you know, be there for our kids. I got to be there for my wife, you know. We got to pull together as a family. I start every morning by getting Mike up, and that's a process in itself. Getting him dressed, getting him up with a Hoyer lift, and then he does his morning stuff, brushing his teeth, cleaning him up and all that. Getting him in his wheelchair, ready for the day, to work on his computer. Right, Mike?
There's so much that Susan and Terry go through on a daily basis that I don't think Susan's gotten 8 hours of sleep.
No. She handles it and still finds a way to be a source of encouragement for other people. That's her approach to life, you know, and the fact that she can do that and expend herself almost completely in her own family, still have something left to give to others is amazing.
I have Duchenne muscular dystrophy, and what it is your muscles get weaker over time. And I used to have like more function. I used to be able to walk, and then my muscles and my legs gave out, so I had to use a wheelchair.
He had some serious things happen. He had cardiac arrest when he was like 14. When he came home from the hospital after that happened, he says, Mom, he says, when do you think I'm going to die? How long do you think I'm going to live, you know? And I said, for you, I don't know how long you're going to be around. I said, nobody knows how long I'm going to be around. You're going to live your life, and you're going to have goals. You're going to live day by day just like anybody else would. We don't have any guarantees, none of us. We're celebrating Mike's birthday. It's a big deal. You know, I never would have guessed Mike would have 31 birthdays, you know? Happy birthday to you.
Mike is doing really, really well overall. You know, he is in his 30s, which is a very difficult age to reach with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. It really means that he and his care team, his family unit, and the other people around him have done a really excellent job helping to take care of his body over time. He's really been surrounded by some amazing people over the course of his lifetime to help him stay as healthy as possible.
Everybody's concerned, you know, about what's going to happen with Michael in the future. They've had so much more time with him than we really ever thought. When his time has come, I think he's going to have done all his accomplishments that he wanted to do.
Michael is a very realistic person. He knows his limitations, and he's like the strongest person I know.
What's going on, buddy? How are you?
Good.
It's been a while.
Yep. Well, I started making mead as a hobby because I'm kind of interested in it, and I like Viking stuff, and they drink mead, and I like the taste of it. I just wanted to see if I could be able to make some of my own.
That's pretty good, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty good. What we're going to do is, can we try the other one? Oh, this is good. I don't know, he just comes up with all these different things to do. Like, I had to learn how to use the whole process of making mead, coming up with many different recipes, Michael's recipes, and I had to buy the ingredients and I had to just make it all.
He's the mad scientist and she's the Igor. What do you want, master? You know, what can I do?
I like that. I have been known to wear my Viking horns when I drink mead. It's important that my fingers are placed in the right spot because when you're doing design work, sometimes you need to do some intricate parts, and if your finger's in the wrong spot, then the mouse will just go all over the screen. I've been probably working with two fingers for 10 years, maybe. I crashed into my computer the other day because my hand couldn't make me stop, so my wheelchair just drove by itself into my desk.
Uh-oh.
Turn it off. Turn the wheelchair
I'm
off.
trying to find it. Hang on.
Turn it off. Turn the wheelchair. My mom gets upset because she's like panics and doesn't know what to do.
Oh my God. Oh, did you hurt yourself? Did you break anything? What the f? Hang on, hang on.
I fucking hate this fucking wheelchair. She knows I'm not swearing at her. I'm swearing at the
Did you
situation.
hurt yourself? I want to know if you hurt yourself.
No.
You sure? You hurt nothing?
No, I'm just fucking annoyed.
How did this happen to you? Michael has a lot of mental toughness. And I think part of that is because I was very hard on him growing up. I knew he had to work harder than other people to get what he needed.
I never really see him get down on himself or feel sorry about his situation. He knows that he has limited time, but he's always trying to leave his mark or his place in the world. He wants to definitely leave an impression on this world before he goes, and he's quite aware of that. I think, one of my biggest concerns when he was growing up is as his physical being started to break it down, he was going to need to be mentally strong. He deals with a lot that you or I don't have to deal with every day.
If he complained about something, I'd say, what are you complaining about? It's a perfect day outside, or we're gonna do something. Or if he didn't quite feel, was afraid about doing something, I said, what are you so afraid of? You're gonna meet some new people, what are you afraid of? I mean, you've already been through the worst of everything in life, so you've got nothing to be afraid of.
To do with a lot of my stuff, I do a lot of just art and staying busy on the computer, working on videos, getting interested in other hobbies such as brewing beer, making mead.
Is it good? Is it?
It's a lot better than
Yeah, that does
ones. And I've also dealt with a lot of my troubles from I'm really into heavy metal music and go to a lot of concerts.
So you psyched, Mike?
I think Michael realizes that anybody can go at any time. So, and he just wants to make the most of the time he has. He's not gonna boo-hoo about it. He's just gonna deal with it and do what he's gotta do, and have fun with what he has. My big concern is keeping the family together, and if if it's just me and Susan at some point, it's important to me that we keep that together. Both Susan and I are just happy that Michael is, at this point is still doing well. We want him around as long as we can have him.
During the last months of college, I was really inspired to make a documentary. That's when my brother took his life. The last week of college was really rough, as I barely had any motivation to finish my exams or study for a test. After I graduated, like a week later, I had realized that I should make a documentary about my brother. It was the perfect idea that came to me at the perfect time.
He's one of the toughest sons of guns ever. The thing that I admire most about Mike is that I'm sure that there's some people would look in the mirror, and maybe he does when he's all alone. Who knows what he thinks when he's all alone? But I've never heard that kid once say, why me? Why did this happen to me? He doesn't complain about it, you know? He's gone to school, he got his degree, he's involved in so many different things, whether it's his love of music, whether it's love of beer. He's got so many just things that he's interested in that I think there's other people that probably would just crawl in a hole and just want it to end. And he doesn't want that. He wants to keep going.
Since JT has passed, I do a lot of art now. I draw all the time. I draw things that I see. It's kind of like my journey of grief. And I think this whole thing of Mike making all these things is the same thing. He's doing it like he told me one day. He says, "Mom, I have to keep doing things because if I don't," he goes, "I'll get depressed." So that's why that's his motivation. I always tell people when someone's creative, it's kind of like, it's almost like if you weren't able to create, you're not able to breathe, because it's the same thing as having to breathe, to be a creative person.
I've been in the sign business for 62 years. Second generation. My father was a sign man before me, and my brother also.
When we got out of the military, we were living there for about a year, you know, and JT would always hang out with his grandfather. He was probably like 6 or 7, you know, watch him in there. He would just sit there watching his grandfather.
He used to like coming down here because I was always doing something different, you know, and sometimes he could help me and sometimes he'd just watch. But, you know, like I say, he had that curiosity, so he was watching and absorbing it, you know. He'd watch me and watch me and watch me.
He took that camera everywhere, I remember. He even brought it on our first date. But the way that he did it and the gift that he had of capturing like these sides of people, there was never a bad photo that I felt like he took, you know, of me or of us or, you know, in a group of people. Like he just had a knack for capturing like that best side of a person.
Mike is documenting JT's life, which is an incredibly ambitious project. It takes a lot of drive and it takes a lot of work to do that. And, you know, it's no surprise that, you know, that inspiration is driven from JT.
Some of my designs and stuff can be kind of out of the box and kind of intense and got a lot of sarcasm and parody in my work. I try not to take anything too serious.
These are some of his designs for his hot sauce he designed. And then he had to design a 3-dimensional project for heavy metal soap. Animal fat, goat's blood, mercury, iron, melted steel, titanium yellow dye. Funny stuff. This is pretty cool. This is a deck of cards Mike designed. He did all these designs for the face cards, all the face cards and all the jokers and the aces, and then designed the back of the card here, which is pretty fancy too. This is Mike. This is Mike's portrait of himself.
Like when I have an idea and I'm like a madman trying to draw it, and if it's something I'm really into, then I usually never stop till it's done.
This film to Michael is Michael's life project. I think he worries about something happening to him before it gets done. I think that's kind of in the back of his mind. And I hope he doesn't feel like that too often, but I think that's in the back of his mind. It's everything to Michael, really. It's everything. I mean, everything that's come together because of it, the people that have reached out to him, just had some amazing things happen as this film has progressed. People we've met, and it's just been amazing.
Michael's aunt, Carol, got in touch with me and told me the family's looking for a videographer. to do some interviews. The whole time I was just really getting more and more pulled into the story. And I just, told Michael, I said, we really need to do a film about your entire family. It can't just be about your brother. This is just such an amazing story all the way around.
Working on this movie the past year has been really rewarding, and it has helped me heal and get through the hard times.
When I went back to work, everybody was very supportive. I didn't really talk a lot when I went back to work. The people were very nice, and I kind of sit so I'm not really facing anybody. We can look at each other if we turn our seats around. We're in little cubicle areas, but sometimes I just be overcome and I just have tears come down my face. Sometimes I still have those days, but not really often. So when I went back to work, I brought like 3 boxes of tissues just to be prepared. So that worked out. But I do work with a bunch of very nice people. I've known them for 18 years, 19 years.
Susan and I only see each other about a half an hour each day, because I work nights, she works days. So we kind of pass in the night.
Thank you.
I have 2 jobs at the hospital I work at. So I have my primary job, which is working at the warehouse, and I picked up this part-time job. They call it companion. So basically what it is to help out the nurses. So sometimes these patients, like an Alzheimer's patient, or like you can't leave a suicide patient by himself, or somebody that's going through drug or alcohol withdrawals. That's a dangerous situation. I think the saddest thing for me, and which I've experienced, is that is the suicides. These kids that try to, these young kids that try to hurt themselves, like JT did, and I can relate to these parents, it's just, you have no control over these situations. It's just, you just kind of hope for the best and try to come up with a plan that hopefully this won't happen again,
That's it. Let's go, good boy. Good boy, safe, Georgie. All right. My sister and my mom have been coming up and filling in for, JT used to take care of Michael when I went to work, so. My mother and my sister kind of filled that void. Best they could, so it's been a big help. I'll just move that again.
I should move this head back.
A little bit overcome, I kept thinking about those pictures, how happy he was in those pictures. It's just like, I imagine people that have loved ones that have dementia or Alzheimer's probably feel the same way. You just see the person slipping away from them. It's sad.
No, I just don't feel like Christmas. I don't know, maybe because I'm older and maybe my brother's passing would make it different. Also, because he was always the one to lug all that stuff out of the attic every year.
I asked Mike, I said, how are you doing today? Is today gonna, is today hard for you? And he said that it wasn't, that he was doing good. So, he's always working on a project and keeping himself busy.
I'm feeling kind of okay about going to work. I was having a little bit of anxiety last night. Just thinking about my ride home from work. And I remember when Terry called me looking for JT, he was kind of frantic because it was bitter cold, just like it is today. Same exact kind of weather. I'm a little bit anxious about my ride home tonight. I think I'm going to take a different route. Maybe that'll make me a little bit less anxious. I came up here a lot in the beginning, but I don't come in here too much anymore. This is something he was trying to work on. He was trying to work on making a... He made like a little model for like a flying thing. And he tried to get it patented and stuff. And he actually made a big model of this too out in the yard and tried to work it where he would, like a manual flight thing. He was very creative. My dad made that Love Neon sign, and he presented it to me for JT's birthday in February. So I turned it on and have not turned it off. It's been on 24/7, except when we had a power outage for a few days. It's been on the whole time. And it shines out on the street, and that was what my son was all about, just loving people and being kind, and so that's perfect for his room. All stuff to do with JT that I didn't want to get rid of, you know. This is the only picture that he had in his desk. Picture of him and his brother. The only photo he had in his room.
She was basically just in shock. She was in shock for a good 3 months. She had to take time off from work. She ended up seeing a grief counselor, and she went to a psychologist to try to work through this. As far as me, I more analyze things internally and deal with things internally, just one thing at a time, one day at a time. That's pretty much the way I've always been.
If I didn't have Michael, I don't know if I would have been the same. I really don't. Having Michael made all the difference, because Michael had so many, it was just like chronic sorrow for many years after Michael went in his wheelchair and when I knew what was happening to him and stuff. I had a lot of depression for a while. And then I decided that, you know what, it's not going to change the situation. So I'm going to try to just accept things and just give my kid the best life he can have, you know. Do stuff and be there, and it's okay to be sad sometimes, you know. It's just life. You have to have the darkness to appreciate the light, I guess. My heart has been like expanding with love and compassion and empathy for people. Even with what happened with JT, I mean, I wouldn't want to trade places with anybody, you know. I mean, I had the best sons. I have the best sons. Sometimes I find pieces of bark. I like to paint on bark, but I found this stick. I thought it was a really cool stick. So the song that my son and I liked was, since he's a little boy, was You Are My Sunshine, My Only Sunshine. So I just lettered it on here. You make me happy. When skies are gray, you'll never know, dear, how much I loved you. Please don't take my sunshine away. So sometimes I hear that song, it makes me cry. But I like to paint on the stuff, and then I like to just throw it out in the woods where it belongs. JT brought me closer to nature. I thought I was pretty close to nature anyways, but I think he made me more aware of some things. And he said to me one day, he said, Mom, he said, do you hear that? And I said, what? He says, listen. So I listened and I said, what is that? What is that noise? And he says, it's the peepers. It's a bunch of frogs, you know, stuff that I never really heard. I mean, it's just like background noise before, but then when I listened, I was like, oh, wow, that's what that is. So I've heard it a few times since he passed, and so every time I hear it, it's kind of bittersweet. I think about that conversation we had. So.
I remember in school, JT, I think he made up flyers, and he was getting all the skateboarders to try to go to the town meeting just to put their word in. He had heard that we were going to get a skate park. You know, he wanted something that was going to last and be a part of the community.
Well, JT, when he was like about 12, he was talking about a skate park. Sanders needed skate parks. And he said, I'm going to make a model to show him what a skate park looks like. And he made a three-dimensional model with half pipes, and he made them. He made it all out of cardboard.
He came to the Parks and Recreation Committee meeting. He had some facts and figures. It was well planned out, and we were very impressed. with his approach. And we immediately agreed that we wanted to take it on as a cause.
I mean, he loved every aspect of it. He took it upon himself to make himself a driving force for that. So, I don't know. I feel like every time I skate here, I'm going to remember him specifically. This park wouldn't be what this park is without him, without his voice.
The desire has been to memorialize JT at that park since he was such a big part of it, and make sure to give credit to JT for really the motivation behind our park.
Hi guys! Hello! So we're going over proposals for a possible sculpture at the Johnson Field Skate Park in honor of JT, and we got two, I think, pretty good proposals. The sculpture I have planned is a tall steel figure standing up straight and holding his skateboard in front of him, very much like we had sort of talked about. I want him to look like he's watching over the park.
When Renee read that, I started having tears go down my face, because that's what I was thinking, because I was thinking that was so fitting, because that would have been JT. He was always over there picking up the park, picking up trash, and trying to get people to take care of what's important,
Whoever's chosen, I do want them to come over and meet you and do some ideas and stuff, so.
Those of us in the community that know what the family has gone through, we have a great deal of respect for the Nortons. We knew that he was going through some struggles. We knew that he was having some difficulties. And you were just really sad. You'd hoped that he would be one of the ones that could survive all that. But then you also knew that perhaps he was now at peace.
Or land on this thing.
It was heart-wrenching for many people.
He is definitely one who will be missed, and he'll be a legend forever in this town and community.
Sorry about my dogs. Oh gosh, don't say sorry. I know, I just... Come on, you crazy. I'm sorry, I got so many little ones. They're animals, they're crazy. That's my baby Scout.
So the sculpture is like slightly larger than life. I'm thinking like 7 feet tall, not including the pedestal. I was thinking some kind of trapezoid sort of shape.
Oh, I like that.
And then maybe the words would be like slightly raised.
I just kind of want him to be remembered, and I think his life mattered. And that's most important to me, that his life mattered and that he existed.
This is a memorial for someone who's died of a mental illness. Is kind of an issue that's very close to me. I just feel like I have to do this. I feel like I'm kind of getting to know him in some way, even though I've never met him. Michael was sending me these old photos of him that really show all the life that was inside him. Making sculpture is always a kind of release of stress for me. I just, it's nice because I don't have to think about anything, of the stress of my life. It's like I'm just sculpting and that's all. I feel like I'm doing this more than just for JT and his family and Standish, but also the people I'm close to that struggle with mental illness.
When I heard that they were going to dedicate the skate park to my brother, I was just so happy and proud that they remembered my brother.
It's so important to so many kids, and the fact that I think JT helped to remove some of the stigma around skateboarding in the town of Standish.
Yeah. And I think it's good that the kids that will never know JT, never have seen him skate, won't have really any idea really who he is other than what the plaque says and what they read about him. But they're gonna know where they're at and what it's called, and that's important to his legacy. Because skateboarding when he was a young boy was really a huge, huge, huge part of his life.
Yeah.
So I think that's really awesome. And I can't wait to see it.
It's a relief to see it like going to be permanently installed. It'll be weird not having it in the studio, just hanging out. I'll be happy knowing that there's a lot more people seeing it.
Okay, babe. I'm getting excited. It's a big day for us. So, a big day for Mike. And I don't know what to expect in there. I have a feeling it's going to be a good crowd. I hope there's a lot of skaters. And I hope there's a lot of people from our community that show up. And people from, I know I have some friends that might show up too. And just excited about the work that the artist did. Jude did on the sculpture, and I can't wait to see it.
I wish I could have met him. It was like pretty crazy going through all the photos that Susan sent me and Mike sent me as reference. I feel like I really saw what he was like.
I think he'd like the event because it brings people together and it's like a community.
I really think Mike's had the biggest loss, you know, his brother. But they were a gift to each other, so this is exciting for Michael.
Yeah, wherever JT was, Michael was, and JT always made it a point to make Michael a part of what he was doing, you know, and he has a whole group of friends now because of JT, making him a part of his group. You know, they were all together.
Yep.
Brothers forever, man.
JT did more than just get us a concrete park for kids to come skate or bike on. He brought community together, and we built this park in 2010, and when we did the grand opening, JT was here. He was here with his video cam, and he was skating, and he was thanking us for a job well done.
Well, I think everybody wants to see this thing, right? How about, can we do a countdown? And then Rob will do the honors. Here we go, 3, 2, 1.
It's just special that know that JT is being remembered in this way and for something that he thought strongly for.
I think this is a wonderful tribute to JT. He just loved to skateboard and he loved people. And this is just awesome what the town of Standish has done for this family and for JT and Michael. It's just a wonderful thing.
I think it's unbelievable. Beautiful.
Now whenever me and my buddies come here and skate, it's like just kind of here with us, looking down at the park. It's awesome. Couldn't have been a better tribute for him to be here at the skate park.
I think it's pretty amazing. It really is. It's everything that it should be.
I like it a lot. It's really inspiring, you know. I mean, he is the reason why the skate park's here. I've been coming here ever since I was in middle school. He always helped me do tricks and truly inspired me to keep pushing on a skateboard, that's for sure.
It's like a guardian over this park. JT's spirit is just gonna be there for all those young people that wanna have fun, and it's just a wonderful thing. It's such a wonderful memorial to him.
If JT was here, what would you say to him?
I don't think I'd say anything. I think I'd give him a hug. I'd just listen, I guess. See what he had to say.
You know, we always tried to raise our kids to be respectful of other people and to help other people. And it's nice when people come up to me and tell me, you know, JT helped me learn how to skateboard, or you know, he was just such a cool kid. And to know that he expressed himself and carried himself in that way makes me proud of JT.
I think the connection to who he was, people will see him as a person, which is what the best thing I can hope for that is people can see him as a person first.
There aren't many people like JT that you come in contact with, and if you do come in contact with someone like him, you're fortunate. He inspired me in the sense that the love and the support and the kindness that he offered me makes me want to be that for other people.
John was always caring and loving, especially towards his brother Mike. Always down to skate, always there for you. He's just funny. He always made me laugh.
He had a way of just lighting up a room whenever he walked in. It was the same with everybody. It didn't matter whether he had known you his whole life or just met you on the street for 2 minutes. He would do anything he could to listen to you if just listening helped your day.
He just showed me that there's life to live. There's always something to always look forward to. It's an honor to call JT my friend. It's an honor.
I think of him every time I touch my skateboard, you know? If I see someone trying a trick at the skate park, or if there's any way I can help a younger kid, I try to step in and do so, because, you know, that made a huge difference to me. So I try to just pass on what he's taught me.
Life's Lessons by JT Norton. Experience builds character. Without the experience of my older brother, I wouldn't be who I am today. He taught me that good arises from the worst of things, and that life's all about playing the hand you're dealt. Because after you've gained your chips back, life's a whole new game. Ever since I was little, my brother gave me strength. He made me fearless. He taught me to be respectful, patient, forgiving, and compassionate. He gave my heart the relentlessness to never give up and the courage to love. His weakness taught me to be strong, and his worries taught me to be fearless. He showed me just how courageous I could be. I'm so close to him that I know he'll be with me wherever I go.
To present this year's Heart of Gold Award is our 2017 Heart of Gold recipient and Maine Behavioral Healthcare Board member, Crichton Taylor. And if Michael Susan and proud father and husband Terrence would be honored if you would come to the stage as well, please.
As a previous Heart of Gold Award recipient, I'm honored to be on the stage again tonight, and this time to introduce this year's winners. When a family experiences the loss of a loved one due to mental illness, it's understandable if they choose to keep their grief private. What's exceptional is when a family takes that painful loss and makes the courageous decision to turn their personal tragedy into something that will help other people. And this is what the Norton family has done. And I admire them so much for it because I know what that takes. And your brave gift will help more people than you will ever know. So congratulations, this year's winners of the Heart of Gold Award.